Okay, so we're live. So go to YouTube, look up Dotware Games, D-O-T-W-A-R-E. It's one word, and that way you can see my screen on your screen. Be able to follow along. All right, let's start with animations. So animations, Unreal is not an animating software. People don't really use Unreal Engine to make animations. You'd use a program like Maya or Blender typically to make animations. Having said that though, there are ways to do it. They're just not so efficient. Like I like to make models in Unreal Engine, 3D models and stuff, even though it's not really a 3D modeler. And so whenever I have students make a static mesh, that's through Unreal Engine, even though Unreal Engine isn't really made for making 3D models. Same thing, it's not made for making animations. But we can get around that. Generally what you'll do is you want to import animations. And before we do anything, because I was asked the animation question, take a look at this website called Mixamo. Okay. This is where I would get animations. And Mixamo is a website for uploading a character model or just taking one of their own free ones that are already there. Mixamo is free currently with an email, I believe. And it has all these preset animations that you can get. Like, for example, this rifle punch animation. This is going on there. And it's cool because you have all these different sliders and stuff where you can change how fast it is, what happens, and there's death animations and idle animations, and kind of still animations like this. But even this has like a little bit of like the head nod and stuff. What's great is here's this grenade throw. If I like it, I can just hit download, and it's going to download this. And it's going to download it as, related to our file type question, an FBX. All animations in Unreal are going to be FBX file, okay? You also might maybe see some 3D models as FBX files. The difference between that, there's also, so 3D models, I'm answering this question now too, I guess. 3D models are going to come in two types. Either going to be an FBX or an OBJ. So you'll know it's an OBJ or an FBX because it'll say the name of the model and then dot and then FBX or dot OBJ. That's how that is. The difference is OBJs are static. FBX can include things like skeletal meshes and animations and all that. So feel free to go on Mixamo and make an account, whatever, and do this and then download some stuff. I'm going to do one right now just for the fun of it. You can take a look at the characters. They have all these pre-made characters in Mixamo as well. So we got this guy right here. And all the animations in the whole Mixamo catalog will work with this character. So let's say I want this guy in my game, right? He's doing that grenade throw that I just picked out. And if I go to animations, he's going to be my current model. So I can pick up pretty much anything with him. So let's do like a good, let's say a walking animation. I type in walk. You don't really want the ones that move, by the way, like this. And thankfully, it'll come with something called in place. You want to check mark that. You want it to be like in place, like he's on the treadmill. So why don't I hit download on that? I'm just going to download. It's going to be an FBX. It says, do you want the frames per second? You can change that or leave that. Doesn't matter. And then you could reduce the keyframes or not. This is just sort of to help prevent lagging if you have a lot of NPCs that all use the same animation kind of idea. With skin or without skin. Without the skin, it's just going to be the animation data. With the skin, it's going to be the animation data plus the model. Okay, so hit download. I'm going to get FBX in a couple seconds. Again, we're on mixamo.com if you want to look this up. And there it is, called walking.fbx. And show in folder. There it is. Now, if I wanted to bring this into Unreal, I could try and drag it. Dragging should work with Unreal. For some reason, it doesn't on my computer. I don't know why yet. But you just hit import. Hit the import button next to add new, and then find wherever that is. For me, it's in my downloads folder, walking.fbx. Cool, got it. Hit open, and it's going to be imported into my project. It's going to ask you, okay, do you want to specify any settings? And generally, I think you should be good to leave these as is. Just hit import. And now his skeletal mesh is in there, including the animation. So double click on this and I'll get his mesh. He looks all gray because his shaders are still compiling. That means his materials are loading. In the meantime, you could download something else, maybe a running animation now for this guy. Make sure in place is checked. You can combine them in Unreal. Yes, you can combine them in Unreal. So let's try. I can show you how to do that. So I'm going to download this second animation now and bring this into it. Yeah, let me show you an example of a combined animation actually as we take a look. So I was just asked about, can you make combined animations? And what that would look like is what's called a blend space in Unreal. So if you want to write that down and try and remember that to Google it later, that's definitely something worth knowing if you're into animation and making all the animation stuff. Is something called blend spaces. Blend spaces, why blend spaces? Because it blends two animations together. So I'm going to, well, okay, I have my second animation. I'm going to import that real quick. So my running.fbx. Import button on Unreal, running, import, okay. So my animations aren't showing up in here, but I'm getting the skeletal mesh and the skeleton. So I want to figure out why that is, rather than just skip it. I'm going to download this other animation. This time I'm going to download it without the skin, so it's just the animation. So where it says skin, I put without skin. And hopefully by this time when it imports, it'll know it's not the mesh. Ports. Okay, so good. Okay, so if you want to download the model, you want to download the model only once, right? And then you're good. What he looks like. And then the animations, every time you download the animations from Mixamo, choose without skin. Choose the without skin option, because then when you import that animation, it figures out, okay, it's this skeleton you're using and everything. So hit import, and voila, now I have the animation, right? And I was going to drag this animation in front of my guy here in the game, and I'll let it play and take a look at what he looks like. Let me take out like all these NPCs. Wait a minute. All right, and see there's that Mixamo animation now in my project. There he is running. Now, again, the process for that is if you're on Mixamo, you want to download animation without the skin. Once you have the model, you want to download without the skin. I like this one, so I'm going to download this one. Then make sure, again, without skin. Skin, where it says skin, make sure it says without. Okay. Download it. Import. And again, now that's been downloaded without the skin, it's going to automatically figure out, okay, the skeleton you want is the Mixamo skeletons already in our project. Hit import. Bring these two together, and now you can see both. Now the question before was, how do you blend two animations together? So I want you all to do this, follow along. I want you to click on your third-person character and the details panel where it says animation mode. There's something called animation class, okay? There's a magnifying glass next to the thing that says animation class. It says third person anim BP. This is you have your third person character selected, right? Click that magnifying glass. And it's going to take you in the content browser to the location of the animation blueprint. Animation blueprint. We're going to open it up. We'll take a look at it. Double click on animation blueprint. Animation, yeah, anim BP. And this is something that'd be a bit overwhelming. It is how all animations states are transitioned together because they kind of need to be blended together. For example, if your player's not moving, he should be standing idle like this. But if he's running, he should be running. But if he's walking like a little slower, he should be not just running slower, he should be kind of at a different animation, walking, which is a blend. So you can explore this, you can hit all the different tabs here and see what's going on. But I want you to know that your third-person character is using this thing called an animation blueprint, where it blends all the different animations based on things like, is the player falling? You know, if so, it's going to end up transitioning to the falling animation and everything else, right? Now, having done that, go back to the front, and this time in your content browser where you have all these animations that are still up because we've pressed the magnifying glass, take a look at the second thing called third person idle run. This is the blend space. Double click and open that up. Double click and open up the blend space. Blend space is two animations that are blended. Actually, it's three animations that are blended. Your screen's going to look different than mine. It's probably going vertical because you have an older version of Unreal. Mine's going horizontal. But the same idea, you've got these little dots on here that are actually their own animations. And a number going between them represents what animation state to be in. If I hold Shift and then I can then move my mouse so we can go over each animation. You can see when this number is the far, probably for you, the far bottom, for me, far left, he's just in his idles animation. But as it goes up a little bit, again, I'm holding Shift and just moving my mouse, you'll see he's sort of in a slow walk until he crosses a certain threshold, which he's in a fast walk, which is slowly blending into, of course, the run. It's because three animations, walk, run, and idle, were dragged, and just drag them from the right here onto this thing called the blend space. So that's how animations are combined. Again, not the most intuitive thing. Okay, go back to the front here of Unreal. Again, in this, now let's do a custom animation, okay? So we'll actually animate something. So look in the content browser, you can see all these different animation files here, right, in Unreal, FEXs. Let's just take an animation that exists and edit it so that it behaves the way we want to. So a good one would be, for example, the walking one. So take walk, third person walk, and instead of opening it up, because we don't want to mess it up, we don't want to screw it up, because if we mess up with this animation, whatever you change on it will be changed on everything that uses it. So let's just duplicate it, right click, duplicate, third person walk, and change this to, you know, I don't know, walking experiment. Name it whatever you want, but double click it now, the copy, to open it up. And now we're in the animation interface. So we double clicked, or we duplicated walking, third person walk, we renamed it something, and then we opened it up. Okay.
How do we open it? I mean, so you, Jake. Yes. Yes. That's actually oh, I wish I was there. Oh, I have to right edit. I think. You should double click it and like. Oh, now it's side click. That's right click and click edit.
You want to right click and duplicate it. You want to duplicate it. You don't want to mess up the original animation. Anyway, moving on. So we're looking at this animation in our animation interface here. The bottom here is a timeline with all of the specific curves that form the basis of the animation. Yeah, go show. And if you click on this timeline down here, if you press the space key, you'll pause the animation, which is really useful. So if you press the space key on your keyboard. So I don't know what the conversation over there on my right is about, but I can stop. I can stop teaching. We do lab time. Should I stop? All right, moving on. We are now in the animation interface. We have, if you press spacebar, you can pause the animation. Once you pause, you click on any of these bones in the animation, click on anywhere on the guy, and then you can move him around. So what I'm gonna do is and you should follow along with this, is let's make kind of a zombie walking animation. So that's not too hard. We'll just click on his arms and then rotate them to be in the direction we want them to be. Kind of out in front and forward. Click on a bone and then you can rotate it. You can do really weird stuff with this. You can like make them like move bones around with the scale tool and things like that, like this. So whatever, so I'm getting my animation kind of worked out. Yeah. And then what we want to do is we want to keyframe it. So at the very top, there's a little button called key. Looks like a plus sign. Click that once, and that'll make sure it memorizes this new animation, and then hit apply. And now when you hit the space bar, it's kind of doing the zombie walk thing. And the point of the keyframe button is if you want to somehow change this bone to definitely go somewhere else, you would keyframe it somewhere in this timeline at the bottom. So you find the area, the time where you want the thing to be memorized, that location, like the location of his hand or something. Or for example, maybe I want, I don't know for what reason, but let's say I want to keyframe his head really big, like that. So what I would do is I would keyframe it. And then somewhere else in the timeline, I keyframe it at normal size. This causes shrinking, expanding effect, right? Because by keyframing, I've told it to memorize 2 points. 1 point when it's big, 1 point when it's small. And so it's going to go between those. So same idea with the animations, it's the same idea. And if you wanted to make an animation from scratch in Unreal, perhaps the best way to start would either be with the walk or with the idle. So I could right click here and do duplicate idle. And then look at this. And this is great because this is an animation where the guy is just standing still the whole time. But I can start moving things around bone by bone and then keyframing those things. And not only that, but you can also, you could save that as the animation that it is because you duplicate it, or you could hit this create asset in the upper left and choose create animation and then do current animation data. Okay, so that's animation work. So I was asked about other types of coding. This is a funny question because right now we're so used to doing this kind of code. Okay? But this code is, it's what? This code is, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's a level, it's a layer above the code below it, which is also a layer above the code below it. So all computers talk to each other in terms of ones and zeros. And then what talks to the ones and zeros is something called assembly language, which is a programming language like C. And then what talks to that is usually a more sophisticated version of the programming language or programming language built in or whatever called. And then what talks to that in this case is our code here. So every time you write Blueprint code, it generates something in C++ because Unreal Engine runs in C++. Unity runs in C#. And also you can code JavaScript in Unity, which is nice because JavaScript is a good language. I like it. Easy. Most code you're probably used to seeing looks something like this, you know? If I was typing code, if I do something like var, I'm trying to think of my old Morrowind modding days when I was like making code there. Var do once equals 0. If do once equals 0, this would be a single equal sign. Then you'd indent it. You'd say set do once to 1 set location This is like a very small example of what like code might look like in something, right? This is not C++. This is a hack together sort of JavaScript kind of thing. This is what actually writing code looks like. I will say this. I don't know how much I can comment on the topic with the time we have, but as far as, because the question was asked, you know, what about actual coding? Actual coding can be done, but by the way, what does actual mean? Is that actual coding in ones and zeros, or is it coding in blueprints? What makes blueprints inferior to coding in C++? You know, what's the difference? I don't think that there is that much of a difference. I think the advantages of using blueprints sometimes outweigh the advantages of using C++. And then there are some C++ advantages to coding traditionally like this that outweigh the others. One advantage of coding C++ is, for some people, it seems that it's faster in terms of the way they think. And then as far as the machine runs it, it is much faster. Your games will lag less if you code in C++ because blueprints are heavy in terms of performance. If you do want to be like David and teach yourself some code, you should go to like code.org and stuff. It's not a bad idea because you know, you're only learning Unreal Engine from me. What if you get hired at a company that doesn't use Unreal Engine? How are you going to get, you know, and this, you said you're a developer because you know how to develop, but you are limited to only one specific software, right? Or if you learn something like C++, you can not only do stuff in Unreal Engine, you can do stuff in other engines, you can do stuff for other industries. It's used in everything. You work for NASA. The Martian rover Curiosity is coded in C, for example, not C++, but C. All kinds of stuff. So it's really useful. Hey guys, talking in the corner, come talk to me after class. I'm visiting this class, and I just think it's disrespectful if I come here and you're doing that. Also, you're wasting your own time. You can do whatever you're doing every class with Mr. Rendon, and then the one time I come, you're wasting the reasons that you're in this program. So yeah, come see me after class. All right, I'm going to move through the list, but that's my comments on coding. 2D fighting. 2D fighting game, okay. So this is like a Street Fighter and stuff. So I've seen them. I'm not really a big player on Street Fighter, but I've seen it. You can follow along if you want. If I do file new project, there is a template. There's two templates. There's one called 2D side scroller, and there's one called side scroller. Side scroller is a 3D game, but it forces the camera in one position so that it's actually kind of 2D, but it's actually 3D graphics, which is like the modern Street Fighter, how that works. To answer your question, I'm not going to make the template now, but to answer your question, a fighting game like that would be, you could think of something like a fighting system in terms of a system. there's many things that happen, right? The player presses the punch key or something, and an animation is triggered. By the way, back to our topic of animations, there's a blueprint node called play animation, right? So if I get my mesh, I'll do this right now just as an example. So I have my NPC that I walk around as right now currently, right, this guy. So go to NPC, right click, type in P key for punch, even though we're not going to be doing much with punch, but P. Okay. And then I drag my mesh onto my graph. And I drag off of mesh and I type in play animation. And there was this new anim to play. I can just click that drop down and I can choose any animation in my project and it'll play that. So if I have some sort of punching animation, I can do that thing. This one's just going to do the third person jump animation because I don't have a punching animation currently. I can get one from Mixamo though, for sure. Right? Look up punch. See, there's all these perfect Street Fighter animations right here. So I would download one, it's all different types. And you could alternate too. So I could, for example, I'm playing this animation now. I could, when the player presses P, choose from some alternate sequence. I could do, for example, something called a multi-gate. Multi-gate lets you do multiple things one at a time. And I could put a random number in there. So I could play, and I could have as many of these as I want. Just hit add pin. And I can change the animation each time to be one of those different punch animations. Again, I didn't download it, but that's like an idea. This will work. And see where it says is random? I would just check mark that. Okay, now every time the P key is pressed, it's going to pick one of these randomly. So there's a little variety. But having said that, let's, if I hit P key, by the way, he's going to go to a T pose right after I hit P key, but if I hit P, that didn't work. Oh, I coded all this on the NPC. Silly me. So I'm going to drag a box, left click and drag a whole box over that, Command C. And then I'm going to open up my actual third person character, just paste that code. Right? Because we can't control our NPCs, but we can control our player. All right, pasted it on the player, the third person character. Now when I hit P key, okay, hit P, and he does this animation. Right? So you can trigger animations through player stuff. So in a fighting game, the first thing you do is you would, let's say, have the animations you want. You got them from Mixamo, or you animated them yourself, and then you press the key, and then they would, and then you'd play the animation, okay? And then you have to do something to do with damage, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can look into this. You can sense. You can have the blueprints know like whether something's hitting something else. What I might do is I might add, like, for example, a sphere collision or something to the hand, and then I would make it invisible or something, and then I could just do an on component begin hit event on that sphere. So I'm putting this little sphere on our third person character. I put it on the mesh, so it's like indented from the mesh. What that allows me to do is go over to details panel where it says parent socket. There's a magnifying glass there, parent socket and details with my sphere selected. Click that, it'll let me pick any of the bones on my skeleton. So I could pick, for example, hand R, hand_R for right hand, and then move that into the position of his right hand. And no matter how he's animated, that ball, that sphere, is not going to follow that hand. And what I could do is, and this could be a punching glove mesh or something, or it could be invisible, like I said. I can scroll to the bottom details panel of this sphere, and there's an event called on component hit. Check mark that, right? And then on component hit is just like we've done this before, I think, with you guys on begin overlap. All that stuff is I find out what's the thing I'm hitting, that's other actor, right? And then I do all the code I want to do regarding the hit itself. So whether it's subtract health or do anything. In this case, maybe it's the NPC. So I would drag off other actor, cast to NPC. And then I could drag off NPC. And let's say I wasn't doing health, but it's a one-hit kill. I could just do destroy actor. Boom. If my sphere in my hand comes into contact with one of my NPCs in the world right now, it will destroy that NPC. It'll just be deleted. I don't think it'll happen unless they're really close to me. Let's see. Oh, see that? Let's see if I get really close to them. I can make him delete. So watch this. I don't have a punching animation, but watch. I get near him. Okay. It's actually kind of challenging. I'll make it big screen because they're already running away. So, okay, this guy, watch him. Oh. Almost got him. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna make my character slightly faster so I can get up to them. Speed. Okay, so watch. See, I deleted him. I'm gonna delete this guy. As soon as he touches my glove, he's deleted. Now it could just be taking health. See, deleted him. Kind of cool, right? Again, that didn't take long to code, but now I'm able to delete these guys. So that's kind of how a fighting system would work. You got to think of it in terms of a system. You got the player pressing something. You got animations doing stuff. You got, oh man, I almost got this guy. You've got, this guy's coming for me. Here we go. Yes, okay. So, you know, on component hit, all that stuff. And maybe instead of destroying, you would be doing points. So I'll hope that clears it up for a hit system. If I were you, I'd take a look at the mix of my animations and I'd do a new project. And that new project would be in the side scroller template, the one where it's actually 3D, it's not 2D sprites or something. Okay, I was asked about file types. I'll answer this one because it'll be a quicker one to answer. So we already kind of covered the topic. FBX, OBJ, that's for 3D models and animations. That's all you're going to be able to put in Unreal for those types of things. You'll hear me refer to, and other people refer to, a 3D model or object as a static mesh sometimes, and that's true. There's two types of meshes. There's static meshes, which is like 99% of our world here. These are all static meshes. And there's skeletal meshes, which have bones, which is like our guy, and animations. Static meshes can't be animated. Skeletal meshes can. As far as other file types would be useful to know, I use PNGs for mostly everything in terms of image files. So my UI, you know, you asked about health bar earlier. I like using PNGs. Unreal will take JPEGs, no problem. JPEGs are fine, but JPEGs cannot have transparency. In fact, I was answering somebody, helped somebody the other day, yesterday in this class, where they had hearts icons for health, kind of like in Minecraft. Instead of it being a health bar, it was health icons. And they're like, they said, yeah, the transparency is all black. It's something messed up, I think, in Photoshop, and messed it up. And I said, no. I said, look, it's a .jpeg, .jpg. I said, JPEGs cannot have transparency, only PNGs. So for that reason, a good rule of thumb is just use PNGs for most of the stuff you want to do. So I use PNGs in Unreal. So that's a file type question. Other thing is for sound, you can't use MP3s in Unreal. You can use WAV files. So bringing sounds and sound effects and stuff, MP3s won't work. And I get asked that quite a lot now, like, hey, why wasn't it working? And then I see, oh, it's an MP3. Waves will. If you have a sound you really like, you can just Google convert MP3 to WAV, and then there's websites that will just convert the file for you. What's that? Okay, yeah, Audacity too. Yeah, definitely. Audacity is something I've used in the past, but I feel like, I don't know, it feels very overrated to me. It's always more complicated than I ever want it to be, and usually doesn't have what I want it to do. But Audacity is a free program. A ton of people use it. A ton of game developers use it for all kinds of stuff. It has to do with audio. It's an audio editor. Yeah. All right, I was asked about the health bar. Now, I've done the health bar in class before. So it looks something like this. You can follow along if you want. Click Add New, User Interface, Widget Blueprint. Add new user interface widget blueprint. And then you double click that, open up, and this is how you make menus. So you can drag buttons onto here, stuff, and you have something called a progress bar. The progress bar has something in the details panel called percent. At default, it's at 0. It's between 0 and 1, 1 being 100%, 0 being 0%. You see, if I increase that number, the bar fills up. Furthermore, next to that, it says bind. If I click bind to create binding, then I can do code with it. And generally, the code looks something like this. Get player character cast to third-person character. In this case, it's a third-person character. And then there's some variable on the third-person character that then I get off. So I go to third-person character. There's on the lower left, add a variable, name it health. Change it to a float. Float is just type of number. That's all it means. Set its default value to 1, right? So we don't want our character to be dead when the game starts. And then on the widget, after I've casted the third-person character here, drag off of there, off of as third-person character, and I can access any of its variables, including type in health. Boom, get health. Plug that in. That's it. So now, whatever his health may be, it will now be updated as the percentage in the progress bar. I can test that out right now by I'm just going to do the H key. Every time I hit the H key, we'll subtract our health by 0.1 or something. So by 10%. So that's what every time I press H, you'll subtract the health. Okay, last but not least, that widget doesn't actually exist on screen. You can't see it at all. I have to add it to the viewport. I have to tell it to be shown. To do that with just begin play, a node called create widget, right? Because we're widget, that's all that is in the menu. That's all a widget is. Where it says class, got to pick the widget I have because you might have many, your main menu, your pause menu, your death menu, all the different widgets. Okay, and then finally, once you after that, drag off return value to add to viewport. That's the player's screen essentially. Hit play. Okay, cool. There's my health bar. If I hit H, see my health goes down. If I hit H again, health goes down. If I hit H again, health goes down. If I hit H again, goes down, etc. Okay, that's how you do a health bar. All right, the last question regarding multiplayer. Oh boy. So multiplayer. You can see the hints of multiplayer even in your single player project. For example, the widget we just did, if I go over to that binding, right? So here's that code we just did for the health. Now, take a look at the first thing we put down. It's called get player character. And this says player index. What does that mean? Player index, and this is 0. That's saying, hey, get player character, but get the character at index 0. Now, for a single player game, that's always going to be the only character, player index 0. So we need to pay attention to that index. However, in a multiplayer game, you do have to pay attention to that because you got to figure out, well, whose players are you getting? Because right now we're getting a player's health. Were you getting his health or my health? So, or her health or their health. Continuing on, like how much multiplayer is it? And for me, being the professional that I am, this is when I Google stuff. That's when I go multiplayer Unreal Engine and I start reading. And that's what I'm going to do right now. And so there's like A lot of really good things. Docs.Unreal Engine, you'll see this come up when you Google. All this stuff is like amazing. You just go through this, and they have like tutorials and stuff. They'll explain it. And even if you don't understand all of it, it's okay. Like just reading through it and understanding 20% of it is going to make you so much better. And then, you know, later you'll come back and read it and you'll understand 40% of it, and so on and so forth. And I have some friends who've made some really amazing multiplayer stuff in Unreal Engine, but I have not done any of that yet. Kind of an interesting frontier. I don't know if I've avoided it on purpose or not, but I'd be interested in this. I've also seen people kind of like fake multiplayer by making a game that happens on one keyboard. So some of my students in my class have done this, where if I I press the K key to punch you, but you press the D key to punch me. And so we're both, and then maybe you use the arrow keys to move yours, but I use the WSD keys to move mine. And so you can play against somebody on the same computer. And it's actually kind of fun. And you can just see how you would do it with all the different key bindings and stuff. You know, have one character called player 1, character 1, another character called character 2. And the keyboard for one of them, you know, all his punching moves is one key. The other one, punching keys is another, that sort of thing. All right, I think that is just about does it. I'm going to leave the rest of the time as lab time, because the students who are talking come up and talk to me, and then, yeah, enjoy the rest of the lab time, and I'll be here for questions. Thank you very much.